The reason the rich never go broke is not because they earn more, but because they never keep 100% of what they make. That sentence alone destroys everything you were taught about money. You were told to save, hoard, protect, build a wall so thick that nothing ever escapes. And you believed it because fear sounds like wisdom when it wears a spreadsheet. But money doesn't die when it's stolen. It dies when it stops moving. What you call financial safety is often just slow suffocation. This is the paradox no one warns you about. The more desperately you try to secure every dollar, the more fragile your life becomes. The tighter you grip money, the faster it leaks through your fingers. Because money is not a trophy, it's a current. And currents that stop flowing turn into swamps. The modern financial gospel is built on a lie that security comes from hoarding, maximizing savings, and minimizing giving. The safest number is 100%, total control, nothing wasted, nothing released. But history and reality tell a different story. Wealth collapses when circulation stops. Security doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from structured flow. The rich understand this instinctively, the poor are trained to emotionally resist it. Here's the paradox. The wealthy intentionally remove a large portion of money from their personal control. Not later, not when they can afford it. From the beginning, they give, they invest, they disperse, they create channels. Meanwhile, the poor attempt to protect 100% of what they earn and somehow still lose it. Emergencies wipe them out. Inflation erodes them. Stress consumes them. Fear taxes them daily. Same money, different structure. This is where the myth of the emergency fund turns toxic. Yes, liquidity matters. Yes, buffers are necessary. But when saving becomes worship, fear becomes your financial advisor. You don't budget anymore. You brace. Every decision is defensive. Every expense feels like betrayal. Every act of giving feels irresponsible. You don't feel secure. You feel hunted. Because deep down you know something fragile is being protected. Fear-based budgeting doesn't create control. It creates paralysis. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Saving does not equal control. Control is an illusion when money is static. Think about it. A sealed container can look strong until pressure builds inside. No outlets, no release, no circulation. Eventually, it cracks. That's how financial lives implode. Not with explosions, but with pressure fractures. Medical bills, family emergencies, market shifts, burnout. One unexpected hit, the container breaks because it was never designed to flow. Now contrast that with a system. Money enters, money exits, channels are defined, percentages are pre-decided. Nothing is emotional, nothing is reactive. Flow replaces fear. This is why ancient wisdom never taught hoarding. Ecclesiastes says, "Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land." Not saved in one pile, not protect one vault. Distribute, diversify, flow outward. Luke says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together, and running over." That's not poetry. That's physics. Compression creates overflow. Movement multiplies capacity. And Proverbs makes it brutally clear. One gives freely, yet grows richer. Another withholds what he should give, and only suffers want. This isn't charity talk. This is economic law. Let's ground this in reality. John D. Rockefeller didn't start giving after he became wealthy. He gave before he became unstoppable. As a young man with almost nothing, he treated giving as non-negotiable, not generosity, not virtue signaling. He structured his money so that a portion never belonged to him. And because of that, money never fully depended on him either. While others chased accumulation, Rockefeller built circulation, and the system rewarded him. Later, another industrialist would push this principle even further, R.G. Letourneau. He eventually reversed the standard tithe, completely living on 10% and giving 90%, not because he was reckless, but because his system could handle it. We'll come back to him. For now, understand this. The wealthy don't fear money leaving them because they've designed systems that bring money back. The poor fear money leaving because once it's gone, nothing replaces it. That's not a moral failure, it's a structural one. Security doesn't come from gripping tighter, it comes from designing a better flow. This is why the 60-40 principle exists, not as a rule, as a mindset, a refusal to claim total ownership, a decision to never let money stagnate. When you remove a portion from personal consumption and control, you do something powerful. You break the illusion that survival depends on hoarding. You signal to yourself and to reality that money is a tool, not a lifeline. And paradoxically, that's when stability begins. Because money trapped in one place is vulnerable. Money in motion adapts. A river doesn't panic when a rock blocks its path, it moves around it. But a pond rots. This chapter isn't asking you to give recklessly, it's asking you to stop worshipping stillness, because the most dangerous financial position isn't debt, it isn't low income, it isn't even the loss. It's immobility disguised as safety, and the moment you understand that, you stop asking, how much can I save, and start asking, how should this flow? That question changes everything. You were told that financial loss is random, bad luck, bad timing, a bad economy, as if money simply vanishes for no reason like smoke. But money doesn't disappear, it leaks. And leaks are never random, they are structural failures. This is the lie that keeps people confused and ashamed. The belief that loss is accidental, unpredictable, unfair. But ancient wisdom says otherwise. Loss follows disorder, the way rot follows stagnation. When money has no higher assignment, it becomes prey. The Bible gives this force a name, the devourer. Not a monster, not superstition, a pattern, a law of decay that activates when order collapses. Because money without structure doesn't stay neutral, it attracts entropy. And entropy always collects its tax. Entropy is not evil, it's automatic. What is not organized breaks down. What is not protected degrades. What is not assigned dissolves. This law governs everything. Homes rot without maintenance. Bodies weaken without discipline. Empires fall without order. And money is no exception. Hoarded money feels safe until it starts attracting chaos. Medical emergencies that appear out of nowhere. Family crises that drain reserves overnight. Opportunities that feel right but collapse fast. You didn't suddenly get unlucky. Your system failed. A bag with no structure develops holes. Haggai describes it brutally. You earn wages only to put them in a bag with holes. You work, you save, you're disciplined, yet somehow there's never enough. Because effort without order doesn't create security, it creates exhaustion. This is where modern thinking short circuits. People ask, why does money keep leaving me? But they never ask, what structure did I violate? Because structure feels restrictive, until chaos shows up. Ancient economies understood this. Agricultural societies didn't start with consumption, they started with the first fruits. Before storage, before trade, before the celebration. The first portion was removed from personal control and assigned to a higher level, not because they were spiritual romantics, but because they understood order. They knew that when the flow was aligned, the harvest stabilized. Contrast that with extraction empires. They taxed heavily, hoarded centrally, squeezed productivity dry. Short-term wealth exploded. Long-term decay followed. Rome didn't fall because it was poor. It fell because it became disordered. Extraction replaces circulation. Fear replaces circulation. Fear replaces stewardship. And entropy moves in. This is why Malachi doesn't promise blessing first. It promises repair. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, then see if I will not rebuke the devourer. The devourer isn't rebuked by hope, or prayer alone, or optimism. It's rebuked when order is restored. Structure comes before surplus. This is the part modern minds resist. They want outcomes without alignment, results without discipline, overflow without flow. But Deuteronomy makes it clear, blessings follow obedience to structure, not intention, not desire, not belief. Structure. This is where the 60-40 system becomes more than a strategy. It becomes a firebreak, a controlled gap that stops decay from spreading. When money is divided with intention, entropy loses access to it. Purpose seals one hole, giving seals another. Growth absorbs pressure, reserve absorbs shock. 4 seals, one system. Money with assignments stops leaking. Money with assignments stops leaking. Money without assignments becomes exposed. This is why 2 people can earn the same income and live in different realities. One system bleeds constantly, the other stabilizes quietly. Same salary, different order. The devourer doesn't attack randomly, it attacks unstructured excess. That's why hoarding backfires. You think you're protecting money, but you're actually concentrating on risk. All pressure, no outlets. Eventually, pressure wins. But when money flows through a structure, pressure diffuses, emergencies still happen. But they don't destroy. Losses still occur. But they don't spiral, because the system absorbs the shock. This chapter isn't about superstition, it's about diagnosis. If money keeps leaking, the issue isn't effort, it's architecture. You don't need more motivation, you need fewer holes. Because once order is restored, something strange happens. Money stops running, not because life is perfect, but because chaos no longer has access. And when the devourer is starved, what remains finally has room to grow. You were taught that billionaires win because they're smarter, more ruthless, more unethical, more luck. That story is comforting because it removes responsibility. If wealth is just IQ or exploitation, then failure isn't structural, it's fate. But history tells a different story. The men who built enduring fortunes didn't just think differently, they are structured differently. They obeyed laws they didn't invent and sometimes didn't even name. The lie is that wealth comes from brilliance alone. The truth is that wealth obeys invisible financial laws. Ignore them and money collapses, no matter how much you earn. Align with them and money compounds, sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively. Let's start with the most misunderstood man in American history, John D. Rockefeller. Most people know the headlines: oil, monopoly, power. What they don't know is how early he cracked the code. Before he had scale, before dominance, before security, Rockefeller practiced structured giving. Not emotional generosity, not random charity, structure. He removed a portion of his income before spending, before lifestyle, before expansion. Money was never treated as a possession. It was treated as a system. This mattered, because when money is systematized, it stops obeying emotion. Fear doesn't get a vote. Impulse doesn't get control. The flow is decided in advance. Rockefeller didn't ask, "Can I afford this?" He asked, "What does the system require?" And the system rewarded him. His wealth didn't just grow, it stabilized. While competitors collapsed under speculation and overreach, his empire absorbed shocks. Because the foundation wasn't greedy, it was on order. Now fast forward. An industrialist, an engineer, a man who took the same principle and inverted the world with it. Letourneau didn't tithe 10%, he lived on 10. 90% flowed outward, not recklessly, not emotionally, systematically. He referred to God as his business partner, not metaphorically, practically. Income arrived. The split happened automatically. No debates, no fear calculations. And here's the part that should bother you. He never went bankrupt. Not once, not during economic booms, not during contractions, not during the Great Depression. When giants fell and markets imploded, his competitors panicked. He expanded. Because his money wasn't hoarded, it was assigned. Pressure didn't crush him, it moved through him. Now contrast this with modern collapse stories. Lottery winners, athletes, influencers, sudden wealth, zero structure. The spike is vertical. The crash is inevitable. Money arrives faster than the order can be built, and without order, money accelerates self-destruction. Lifestyle inflation, bad advisors, false friends, predatory investments. The money doesn't fail them. The system does. This is why Proverbs says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." That's not about morality. It's about structure. Wealth that survives generations isn't luck. It's disciplined. Flash wealth evaporates. Ordered wealth compounds. Genesis tells us something even more revealing. After Abraham wins a military victory, after power, leverage, and wealth are secured, his first recorded act is structured giving, not a celebration, not hoarding, alignment. Before expansion, he orders the flow, because victory without order breeds arrogance, and arrogance invites collapse. Jesus later states the psychological law behind all of this: where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Your money reveals your hierarchy. If all your treasure is locked in self-preservation, your heart lives in fear. If your treasure is structured beyond yourself, your heart stabilizes. This is the part no one talks about. Structure doesn't just protect money, it protects the mind. Rockefeller slept differently from his competitors. The Cherno moved differently from his peers. Because when money has order, fear loses leverage. Now picture the timeline. On one side, sudden spikes. Fast money, fast fame, fast collapse. On the other, slower growth. Boring discipline, compounding stability. Both paths are governed by the same invisible law. Structure determines survival. Ancient law doesn't care about belief. It doesn't care about intention. It enforces outcomes. Those who unknowingly obey it are rewarded. Those who violate it, no matter how confident, pay the price. This chapter isn't about idolizing billionaires. It's about exposing the mechanism. Because the same law that preserved Rockefeller is available to anyone willing to design an order. And the same law that destroys lottery winners is already working against anyone who treats money as a possession instead of a system. The code was never hidden, it was just never taught. You were told that money decisions are rational, numbers, logic, discipline. But that's not how the brain works. Money doesn't hit spreadsheets first, it hits the nervous system. Before you think, you feel. Before you plan, you react. That's the lie. The truth is uncomfortable. Money decisions are neurological and emotional, and reason usually arrives late to justify what fear already chosen. This is why two people with the same income live in opposite realities. One feels calm, the other feels hunted. Same numbers, different brains. Let's talk about what actually happens when money enters your life. When income arrives and you attempt to keep 100% under personal control, your brain doesn't relax, it tightens. The amygdala, the fear center, lights up. Threat detection activates. Loss scenarios multiply. What if becomes a constant background noise. Cortisol rises. Stress hormones flood the system. You don't feel rich. You feel responsible for survival. This is hoarding psychology, not greed, fear. The brain interprets hoarded money as something fragile that must be defended. Every expense feels like danger. Every act of giving feels like self-sabotage. You don't sleep better, you sleep lighter. Now contrast that with structured allocation. When money is divided with intention, when portions are assigned, automatically something shifts. Dopamine activates. Not the cheap dopamine of impulse spending, but the deeper reward loop of completion. The brain registers order. Oxytocin follows. Trust increases, not just toward others, but toward the system itself. And then something critical turns on. The prefrontal cortex, long-term planning, impulse regulation, delayed gratification. This is the difference between reaction and stewardship. Scarcity thinking lives in the amygdala. Abundance thinking lives in the prefrontal cortex. The 60-40 split doesn't just move money, it moves identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to survive on money. You start seeing yourself as someone directing it. This is the psychological pivot from scarcity identity to steward identity. Scarcity asks, what if I lose this? Stewardship asks, where does this belong? That question alone rewires behavior, because when money has a destination, fear loses relevance. You're no longer deciding in the moment, you're executing a plan. Behavioral finance proves this repeatedly. Disciplined allocators outperform emotional savers, not because they're smarter, but because they're insulated from panic. Emotion savers overreact. They freeze during downturns. They hoard during uncertainty. They miss compounding because safety feels urgent. Disciplined allocators don't feel heroic. They feel bored. And boring compounds. Generosity plays a role here that most economists hesitate to admit, not spiritually, neurologically. Giving reinforces agency. It signals to the brain, I have enough to direct outward. That signal matters. It reduces fear-based reactivity. It stabilizes self-perception. It increases resilience under stress. This is why generosity correlates with higher long-term wealth, not just happiness. The brain of a giver doesn't collapse under volatility. It adapts. Scripture understood this long before neuroscience caught up. We are not given a spirit of fear, Paul writes, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Fear is not neutral. It distorts judgment. Proverbs says, as a man thinks, so he is. Your financial structure shapes your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your outcomes. And then comes the most uncomfortable line of all. If you are not faithful with unrighteous mammon, who will entrust you with true riches? That's not moral pressure, that's psychological law. If money makes you anxious, impulsive, or defensive, you're not being tested for wealth, you're being diagnosed. The 60-40 system trains the brain before it rewards the bank account. It teaches order under pressure. It teaches trust without denial. It teaches generosity without recklessness. And over time, something subtle happens. Money stops feeling heavy, not because you have more, but because it's no longer sitting on your chest. Flow reduces psychological load. Structure reduces decision fatigue. Fear steps aside because it's no longer needed. This chapter isn't telling you to think positively. It's telling you to build systems that force better thinking, because the brain follows structure, and the mind you build determines the wealth you can hold. This is not advice. Advice can be ignored, tweaked, delayed. This is a call to alignment. Wealth doesn't leave your life because you lack intelligence. It doesn't disappear because you chose the wrong stock or missed the right moment. It leaves because it lacks an assignment. Unassigned money is exposed money, and exposure always attracts loss. What you refuse to divide, life will eventually divide for you, violently, unexpectedly, without consent. This is the pattern history keeps repeating. Money without order becomes a target, not because the world is cruel, but because disorder invites correction. This chapter is where everything becomes personal, not theoretical, not historical, not neurological, practical, immediate, final. The challenge is simple, but not easy. You must divide, not someday, not after things stabilize, not when you make more. Now, define your structure, 60%, 40%. The numbers are not sacred. The principle is, division creates defense. The 60% is for life, living, growth, reinvestment, expansion, food, shelter, skills, capital that multiplies. The 40% is not a waste. It is a purpose, giving, protection from entropy. It is money removed from ego and reassigned to order. Together, they form a system that breathes, nothing hoarded, nothing ignored, nothing ignored, nothing left vulnerable. This is where most people hesitate, because division feels like loss. When you're still thinking like an owner, ownership says, "This is mine." Stewardship says, "This was entrusted." That shift changes everything, because owners fear loss, stewards fear disorder, and disorder is what actually destroys wealth. Here is the warning, and it is not metaphorical. What remains undivided becomes vulnerable. It sits still, it accumulates pressure, it draws chaos, medical bills, legal issues, family emergencies, bad decisions at the worst time, not punishment, exposure, but what is aligned becomes defended, not magically, structurally. Storms still come, but they don't collapse the house. This is why Scripture doesn't flatter, it warns. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth. Not the power to keep it selfishly, the power to handle it rightly. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. You can grind endlessly and still watch everything slip through cracks you never sealed. And then the final law is stated plainly. To the one who uses well, more will be given. Not to the one who hoards, not to the one who fears. To the one who fears, professes through order. This is why this chapter ends with surrender. Not emotionally dramatic, but structurally decisive. Because laws don't respond to feelings, they respond to alignment. So now, not later, you decide. You move from ownership to stewardship. You stop asking how much you can keep. You start deciding where each portion belongs. And to seal this, not intellectually, but emotionally, we end with a decree, a prayer of order. Not asking for more, but offering what already exists. A prayer that says, I release the illusion of control. I divide what has been entrusted to me. I reject fear as my financial advisor. I choose order over accumulation. Flow over the hoarding, structure over chance. Build through me what cannot be taken from me, because what is aligned is protected. And what is protected finally has room to grow.